Good morning, all. If you were at the symposium last year and you saw my short talk, I talked about the push notification world and how we were on the verge of everything you want just showing up versus you having to discover and pull it down. Oh, by the way, I see the word sex behind me. Sorry, that's a poster on the wall. That was inadvertent. I'm sorry. Um, so we've made a lot of headway this year in the one-to-one personalization world. And if I could get the first slide up, Amanda. There, that's not the first slide, I'm sorry. All right, so very good sessions this morning about collaboration. And maybe I missed it, but I don't think I've heard much about collaborating with a very important audience, your readers, your viewers. That's what I'm going to talk about today, because we're on the verge of the ability at scale and affordably to simply ask our audience for permission and criteria to send content to them, to send advertising to them. We're on the verge of just asking our audience as a new data set. Now, Lewis talked this morning about all the data scientists and analytics they use to glean insights for what content their readers, viewers want. And we believe that adding this very important data set where you simply ask individuals to set their criteria for content, we're going to see that at scale this year. Next slide. And it's critical that we do that because the consumers are changing radically in what they want and how they access it. There's no wonder ad blocking in many app stores is the #1 app. There's no wonder consumers are tired about slow load times, especially on mobile, when media sites have put dozens of tags in their site that try to sniff what these readers and viewers want, and kind of in a creepy way, and page load times. I read yesterday that up to 80% of the data transferred from mobile news sites to individual handsets is advertising content. So consumers are tired of this. It's time to change. Next slide. 16 years ago, Seth Godin, who's brilliant, he coined the term permission marketing. And he said, one way to sell a consumer something in the future is simply to get his or her permission in advance. I'm going to talk about that in a minute in terms of retailers that are leading the charge in this area. And Andy Heddle is going to talk a lot more about retailers as kind of the bellwether for where we're going. Seth also said, the future of publishing is about having connections to readers and the knowledge of what those readers want. Next slide, Amanda. So if you haven't read this blog post by Dries, I urge you, because he talks about this monumental shift of the digital world today from pull, that is, media creates content, advertisers create content, and hope that audiences discover and pull that content into view. We are on the verge of the push world, where audiences set their interests, intent, criteria, and what they want is pushed to them. It just shows up. And again, this is the year where media sites can do this affordably and at scale. Next slide. So this is the year where all news sites can be more like Facebook and the New York Times. Of course, Facebook, with all its money and developers, is constantly tweaking its algorithm to increase relevance of what shows up in the news feed. The New York Times, if you've read this Contently piece, In some of their email newsletters, they're getting 70% email open rates. How? They've asked individual readers to subscribe to very granular topics like a reporter, a saved keyword search string, and then the New York Times is dynamically generating email and push notifications alerts on content that individual readers have signed up for. And of course, the New York Times has a lot of money and a lot of developers developed this. And Andy and I are working with a technology from My Alerts that is going to let any media site do this. Next slide. In fact, this technology is already working at a bunch of the top news sites. If you can read this slide on the right, there is a list of the news sites. It's working in a demo format, meaning that with a Chrome browser plugin, you internally within your newsrooms and the business side can experience this. There we go. So upper left, the Minneapolis Star Tribune. With this browser plugin, you can favorite a keyword search string. You can subscribe to specific topics, sections, etc., and you will get dynamically generated one-to-one email alerts on what you've subscribed to. Right below that, the Chicago Tribune. You can subscribe to, currently at a top level, this is business news, and get alerts on business news at the Chicago Tribune. Over on classifieds, cars.com, you can set up alerts on specific cars, specific brands, prices, availability, reviews, the like. And again, these are dynamically generated one-to-one alerts when they're sent, because each individual has basically opted in and requested this content to be sent to them. Next slide. And retailers are leading the charge. And I know retail is a huge advertising category, especially in newspapers. So my question is, retailers are collaborating one-to-one with their shoppers. Is there a way for news sites with their retail advertisers to together collaborate with the audience? And by that, I mean, I've talked about how the audience can sign up for specific content, keyword search strings, topics, reporters. As you'll see in a minute, retailers are asking shoppers to sign up for specific items. And it's no surprise that retailers are doing this, because with all the marketing spend and channels that retailers use to drive traffic to their retail sites, there's less than a 2% conversion on every page view looking at a product. So 12 of the top 50 retailers this year are starting to implement a form next to, right today they've only had one button, add to cart, at that content page. Now they're adding a button that says get alerts, and they're letting shoppers opt in to their specific interests about brand, reviews, price, availabilities. So again, is there a collaboration that can occur between your news organization, your retail advertisers, and what retailers are doing with consumers? Here's one idea. Next slide. I'm calling it the one-to-one Pinterest board concept. So today in retail advertising, it's the generic preprint on the left. They don't work at all. Terrible user experience, almost zero relevance to anyone who happens to even go in there and look at them. Can we ask readers to create a pin board of the items from across your retail advertisers of most interest to them? Maybe we can. Next. Here's a real example today at Home Depot. Bob is a real shopper in LA. He has set up his own pin board. He's tracking 37 items for price drops, availabilities, new reviews, new models added by the brand, etc. He's received 74 alerts on what he's opted into, and he's returned to the site 24 times to check out how the content has changed on the items he's subscribed to. We think this is obviously working very well in retail, and we think it's going to work exceptionally well in news. Next slide. Here's some of the metrics from Home Depot. 40% of the time when a shopper is asked to leave their email and set their criteria for alerts, they opt in. When those alerts go out, there's up to a 60% open rate. And more importantly, Home Depot has captured more than 1 million new email addresses with specific interest and intent attached to it. Next slide. And your news sites are already what I call channelized for search engine optimization. So this technology I'm talking about integrates with one line of JavaScript in your tag manager. And by the way, it would let you shed probably dozens of tags that are trying to guess using predictive and other analytics, trying to guess at who's interested in what and doing what on your site, because now you're simply asking your site visitors to set their criteria for these alerts. But anyway, your sites are channelized for search engine optimization. So this integration, one line of JavaScript, is very simple and affordable. In fact, here's Macy's that is channelizing and setting up this one-to-one dynamic alerting, and you see all the channels that they built for search engine optimization, including content, their trends section. Next slide. So as I said, it's very simple integration. This company, My Alerts, is already monitoring from the outside in content changes on all retail sites and all of those news sites that I showed you on that earlier slide. So the integration in the tag manager simply inserts the Get Alerts button at various channels and levels and content areas of your site for opt-in by your consumers. And then the technology dynamically generates the one-to-one personalized alert, currently in email with SMS coming soon. Next. So it's time. This is the year as we're moving from a pull world to a personalized push world where stuff just shows up that people want. It's time. It's time that you collaborate with your audience. It's time that you collaborate with your advertisers, and let's move to this new world. Now, any questions? And then I want to introduce Andy Heddle. I'm doing a Marco Rubio here.
I don't see any hands necessarily coming up, but I think it's good.
All right.
So let's go ahead and let's transition to Andy, if it's okay with you.
Yeah. So as I said, retailers are leading the charge in this customer-centric, customer-curated, one-to-one world. And I've been working a lot with Andy Heddle, who just left Best Buy, to kind of push the envelope with me on this one-to-one world. And Andy's going to dive deeper for you on all of retail, which again I see as very relevant to what you're thinking about and doing in news. Andy.
And Andy's getting set up here. Amanda's setting him up real quickly. And Kim, basically what you're saying is that you see this relationship, this permission marketing, as a collaboration with the consumer, the user, that they're not only willing, but they're eager to enter into.
That's right. Yeah. Can you simply tell us what content, down to a keyword search string, a reporter, as granular as you want, can you simply tell us what you would give us permission to alert you on when we create that new kind of content?
Awesome. And
And
Andy
to me,
is...
if you add that data set, that permission-based, intent, and interest-based data set to the predictive analytics and shed a lot of the predictive stuff. Add that data set in your experience with your audience, you're going to win.